Welcome to the Family Bible Journey. Whether you're a first-time listener, one of our regulars, or one of those who is committed to either reading through or journaling through the Bible with us, thanks for listening. This is episode 433, Season 1 of the Family Bible Journey Old Testament podcast. Today we're looking at Ecclesiastes chapter 4. The title of today's podcast is Better Together. In our key verses for today, the entirety of Ecclesiastes chapter 4, where we read, "Again, I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors was power, and there was no one to comfort them. And I thought, the dead who are already dead, more fortunate than the living who are still alive. But better than both is he who has not yet been, and has not seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun. Then I saw that all toil and all skill in work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. This also is vanity, and is striving after wind. The fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. Better is a handful of quietness than 2 hands full of toil and striving after wind. Again I saw vanity under the sun, one person who has no other, either son or brother, yet there is no end to all his toil, and his eyes are never satisfied with riches, so that he never asks, for whom am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure? This also is vanity and an unhappy business. 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their toil. But if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, and has not another to lift him up. Again, if 2 lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, 2 will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. Better was a poor and a wise youth than an old and foolish king who no longer knew how to take advice. For he went from prison to the throne, though in his own kingdom he had been born poor. I saw all the living who move about under the sun, along with that youth who was to stand in the king's place. There was no end of all the people, of all of whom he led, yet those who come later will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity, and is striving after wind." This is the word of the Lord. In chapter 4 here, we are going to come across one of the most beloved passages used for marriages in all the Bible, and that is chapter 4, verses 9 to 12, where it says, "2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their toil. If they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, and has not another to lift him up. Again, if 2 lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, 2 will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken." The blessing of this passage is that from the perspective of many preachers, including this one, that 3-corded strand is a wonderful and a powerful image that God inserts himself into these relationships. This isn't just a partnership, especially when we apply this passage to marriage. And I do have a couple of notes on this passage. 1, verse 12, a word of wisdom section. It simply is a repeat of the verse. A cord of 3 strands cannot be broken. And this 3 strands, it is in the context of marriage, the husband, the wife, and God who binds them together. And there are some really cool different illustrations that will oftentimes work their way into a wedding. Sometimes the couple will actually braid 3 cords of 3 different colors, one representing the husband, one the wife, and one God who has drawn them together. One time there was a cross that was a cross set inside of a cross, and the outer cross, it was very rigid and strong. The inside, much more delicate. And then there were 3 pins that held the 2 crosses together. Also, of course, I'm sure that many people used a unity candle in their marriage ceremony. And sometimes pastors will have the couple blow out the individual candles. I prefer, if we have a unity candle in a wedding service, that the two individual candles, one representing the husband and one the wife, oftentimes lit by the mothers of the two who are being married, that they stay burning even as that unity candle is lit. And it is just a symbol. It's a simple reminder that as Christians, we want to make absolutely clear that God is a part of this relationship. And not simply because we have invited him to be a part of our relationship. We certainly want to invite God to be an important part of our marriage relationship. But because he is the one without our invitation even. He is the one who draws people together. And it is his love that is the source of all human love. And so this passage is a wonderful passage of blessing, especially in the context of marriage, even though, as we see in the rest of this chapter, that this world is full of oppression and injustice, because this chapter, it begins with oppression and injustice, and it ends with a king who is an oppressor and who is unjust and is so ruthless and cruel in his dealings with his people that we are told by the end of the chapter that after he was gone, nobody missed him. And what a sad state of affairs that is, to think that someone could be so unjust, so incredulous, so evil in their domineering rule over their people that the people are glad that they're gone. But we can look back on human history and even, unfortunately, in current times, see many leaders who are a burden to their people much more than a blessing. And so we see in this chapter that is full of oppression and suffering, a tremendous encouragement towards togetherness, a wonderful blessing often applied to marriage, and we see the wisdom of God that teaches us that we are better together, which is a lesson that is so important for us today because there are too many seeking and striving very hard to divide people, to separate us from another, who, for whatever reason, think that we are better off by ourselves, maybe so that we can do our own thing, do it our own way, surround ourselves only by people who think like us, act like us, look like us, live like us. But in my opinion, if everyone and everything is the same, that's just plain boring. Why settle for just vanilla or just chocolate ice cream when you can have the whole case, 32 flavors, if you want? One for every day of the month. That, in my opinion, is a much more appropriate expression of the beauty of God when we are together and embrace the uniqueness of every individual. So we are so much richer together than when we are apart. But the wisdom of this world, it is doing everything that it can to drive us as God's people and even as all people apart, to separate us, because Satan knows that if he can get us off on our own and alone, that he has a much better chance of prevailing over us. And this is what we, as the Lord's people, want to be aware of. That it is more often human pride than the will of God that people would celebrate. And that there is a tremendous blessing in togetherness when we, as the people of God, embrace each other for who they are, and our lives are enriched in those relationships that God brings about when we live together in love, respect, humility, and harmony, and endeavor to do so even when it's difficult. But sadly today, many are not even going to give God a chance in their relationships, because as soon as the going gets tough, well, they just get on going. And so let us, as God's people, see the blessing and the benefit of living together in love under the Lord's blessing, and strive for the blessings that come from togetherness, because whether or not we realize it or recognize it, we are better together. If you appreciate the faith and perspective of the Family Bible Journey, and you'd like to learn more about how I'm able to help congregations around the country as they deal with the difficulties and the opportunities of ministry, go to the website of genesisgroup.com. That's GENYSYS-group.com. Or look on YouTube, where you can watch our videos and hear what other people are saying about our work. Our blessing for today. May you be blessed by your companionship with the Lord, despite the loneliness, injury, and injustice of this life. Amen.